أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. تلك آيات الكتاب المبين. نتلو عليك من نبأ موسى وفرعون بالحق لقوم يؤمنون. إن فرعون علا في الأرض وجعل أهلها شيعا يستضعف طائفة منهم يذبح أبناءهم ويستحيي نساءهم. إنه كان من المفسدين. ونريد أن نمن على الذين استضعفوا في الأرض ونجعلهم أئمة ونجعلهم الوارثين. ونريد أن نمن على الذين استضعفوا في الأرض ونجعلهم أئمة ونجعلهم الوارثين. ونجعلهم أئمة ونجعلهم الوارثين. صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Assalamu alaikum and a very warm welcome to all the esteemed guests who have joined us from different parts of the world for the Baitul Muqaddas International Conference. As we gather here today, we are reminded of the powerful words of Imam Rahil, who said, "We are all part of a single body, and we should love and respect each other like the various organs of the healthy body." Indeed, in today's world, where conflicts and differences seem to divide us more than ever, it is important to come together and have a dialogue that helps us understand each other better. And that is precisely why we have invited these world renowned speakers to share their thoughts and insights with us. Let us begin by warmly welcoming Father Frank Galli, the father of the Church of England, who has been a prominent voice of peace and unity in the Christian community. We are honored to have you with us, Father Galli.
I want to begin by thanking the Ahlul Bayt Association for organizing this conference and for inviting me. This is a subject which is very dear to my heart, because Jerusalem was the holy city where Jesus Christ, Al-Masih, the Messiah, preached, and where eventually he carried out his mission by undergoing passion, suffering on behalf of all humanity. And we believe that he was crucified. We Christians believe he was crucified, nailed to the cross, died, and then rose again. It was a resurrection. So at the end of the day, it was a triumph over death and over suffering, and in a way a token of our own Christians and all the people of faith, our own eventual resurrection and enter into heaven. Now, let me say that Jesus was not starry-eyed concerning Jerusalem, because in the Gospels we read that he actually was sad and invoked some woes about Jerusalem, because Jerusalem was in many ways faithless, because some of the leaders of his people had actually persecuted the prophets and even killed them. We do read this in the Gospels. So it's a holy place, a place dear to the heart of Christians, but and as well, of course, to fellow monotheists like Muslims and Jews. But Jerusalem, in a way, is a contradiction, and also a place of peace, we believe, but it's a place where so much blood has been spilt over centuries. Now, right now, Jerusalem has been occupied and usurped, taken over by a particular faction, exemplified by Zionism. And because of that, the people of Palestine have been marginalized, have been oppressed. In many cases, their homes have been stolen, and they're constantly being harassed, persecuted, sometimes even killed by the Zionist rulers. Now, what can we do about this? Well, I want to say that my view is the same view that the Vatican had expressed a number of years ago, well, until the Zionists made to persuade the papacy to make a compromise. So the plan was that Jerusalem should be a special place run by the United Nations on behalf of three great religions, not just one religion, as it is at the moment, but three religions, namely Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. And so it should be, in a way, under a special status. Jerusalem is special. It should not be occupied and should be taken over by just one faction. Now, I was actually very interested. Recently, I was reading, there is a philosopher called Slavoj Žižek, who's not a Christian. He's a Marxist, but he also, in one of his writing on violence, again, an allusion to Zionist violence, he said that Jerusalem should be administered on behalf of three religions and on behalf of the whole of humanity. Now, how much chance has this plan got to be accepted? I don't know, but of course I have hope because I'm a Christian. I believe we must have hope, hope in God, in God's providential plan. So I think eventually that is probably what should happen. That's just my view as a Christian. I also know that Jerusalem is very dear to Muslims because it is mentioned in the Quran, not directly, but indirectly, because the reference in the Quran about Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him. I'm very devoted to the Prophet. He's very dear to me. He's someone whom I deeply admire and even love. The Prophet ascended from Jerusalem all the way to heaven. And he had, this is a tradition, it's only alluded to in the Quran, but it is actually maintained by hadith and Muslim traditionalist tradition writers that he had special supernatural experiences in heaven before returning to earth. Actually, I have a poster. It is not behind me, but it's down below in my sitting room, showing the Prophet astride Burak, the mare-headed, the woman-headed mare ascending into heaven. So it's something which I like very much. I bought it from Istanbul when I was a chaplain in Turkey many years ago. So, it's we got something which brings together Christians, because Jesus, Muslims, Muhammad, and of course, there are lots of good Jews, who anti-Zionist Jews, who don't believe that Jerusalem should be occupied only by faction. And I know some of them, and they actually are loyal to Moses, Musa, as he is in Arabic, and they believe that because of that Jerusalem should belong to all. It is unjust that Jerusalem should be occupied by just one faction. Now, some people believe in taking direct action in terms of violence. I was honored to know a Christian archbishop who was actually Archbishop of Jerusalem on behalf of a small Christian community connected with the Vatican. And this archbishop was an indomitable fighter for Palestinians, for Palestinian cause. He actually was tried by the Israelis, by the occupiers, for having smuggled arms on behalf of Palestinians. Now, and he was a Christian archbishop. Now, we are committed to peace, Christians, we hate violence, but there is actually a teaching upheld by great theologians and saints that rebelling against tyranny is permitted, is allowed, because a tyrant is a person, a tyrant regime, is an enemy of a common good. So we must support the common good. So in that case, the archbishop, incidentally, was called Hilarion Capucci, and he was imprisoned by the Israelis before that, and eventually released by pressure from the Vatican. But eventually, some years ago, when he was already a very old man, in his 80s, he took place in, it was a famous ship who tried to break the unjust embargo of Gaza imposed by the Israelis, and Bishop Capucci was on that ship. Again, he was arrested, and he was only released thanks to the pressure from the Vatican. I met him in Rome many years ago, before he died, and he told me, Father Frank, do not despair. We shall meet again in a free and liberated Jerusalem. And these were words by Archbishop Hilarion Capucci, a great man, great fighter for Palestine. He was himself a Palestinian. He was born in Palestine. So he was a Christian, but he recognized, like many Christian authorities have maintained, St. Thomas Aquinas wrote an article on rebellion in his great work, Summa Theologiae, and in that work, he made it clear that it is a duty to rise up against tyranny. It is not an option. We have to do it. We have to do it. Now, we have to do it in many ways. It's, I love the Arabic word jihad, which is not necessarily armed struggle, but you have to struggle with the word, with the tongue, so to speak, with writing, with example, with engaging in a battle for justice. So we all have a battle, a struggle to fight on behalf of the oppressed people of Palestine. I know Jesus would approve of what I'm saying. I know Jesus is on the side of the oppressed, because he was all his life fighting on behalf of the oppressed. He fought against the demonic powers, Satan, the devil, and all his works, but he fought also against injustice in favor of the poor, the marginalized, the oppressed, the suffering under the heel of the unjust. So this is like a sacred cause. This is not just a matter of human rights. Yes, it is human rights, but it is more than human rights. This is a matter of the cause of Jerusalem, is a matter of divine rights. In the case for a matter of Palestine, the matter of the people are so dear to God. And I'm not, as I said before, I'm not naive about Palestine. There's been so much blood, so much city of peace. It's been a city of war. There's been so much injustice. But I'm also hopeful. In the Bible, in the last book of the Bible, there is a famous passage where the voice of God tells us about the heavenly Jerusalem, that eventually the righteous will enter a new kind of Jerusalem, a heavenly Jerusalem, a Jerusalem where injustice, oppression, violence, stupidity, unbelief, atheism are removed, are cleansed. That Jerusalem, in a way, is a sort of metaphor for the glorious future which God has is planning for us all, for believers, and for all the good and just, righteous people on earth. And that is what I, as a Christian, strongly believe. And once again, my name is Father Frankelli. I'm an Anglican priest, and I want again to commend and thank the Ahlul Bayt Association for organizing this conference. God bless you all, my good friends. Barakallah fikum. We shall meet again in a free Palestine, inshallah. God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Father Frank Gali. Next, we have, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Khalid Kadumi. Kadumi is the leader of Hamas from Palestine, and he has been at the forefront of the struggle for justice and freedom in his country. We are grateful for your presence today. I would like to request Dr. Khalid Kadumi to say a few words about the freedom of the Palestine. Dr. Khalid Kadumi.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله سيدنا وحبيبنا وقائدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه الطيبين الطاهرين. Dear friends, brothers and sisters, I would like in the beginning to thank Ahlul Bayt Association Portugal for convening this conference at such important moment and in the anniversary of Al-Quds Day that it has been witnessed since the winning of the Islamic Revolution in Iran by Imam Khomeini rahimahullah, and this Sunnah Hasana that has been given to revive the issue of Al-Quds, the first Qibla of Muslimin, and also to remind all Muslims at a particular time of the importance of this issue. In the few moments to be with you, I would like to highlight the situation happening in Palestine, occupied Palestine, and especially in reference to the dynamics among the Israeli regime society and what is happening of the protests over there, and what is the impact over the project of so-called Israel and over the Palestinian issue. It is very important to know that the project of Israel has been supported, rather has been into being because of the support or because of the will of the superpowers. Then it was UK, and now it is United States of America. And unfortunately, it has been coupled with the absence of a qualified and efficient stance of the Arab and Muslim countries to safeguard the Palestinian rights and to empower the Palestinian to be able to face the Israeli atrocities and return to their own homelands and to return their usurped rights. These two major elements, I believe, that they are the reason of the strength of this Zionist regime: the support of the superpower and the absence of the stance from the Muslim Ummah. Today, what is happening exactly inside this regime, that the existing fanatic, extreme, rightist government of the Israeli regime is no more tolerated by the international community. The narrative of Israelis is no more accepted. The exploitation of the sentiments that Israelis been spreading all over 74 years is no more tolerated. Their crimes are exposed. Their so-called proclaimed democracy is exposed. And now Israel itself turned to be a moral burden on the theme of the Western civilization, if at all the expression is correct. I believe that this narrative should not be tolerated. At one hand, they are killing innocent people among the Palestinians. They are destroying houses. They are trying to attack over the holy shrines of the Muslims and Christians. Recently, the reports in Jerusalem that the settlers, Israeli settlers, are killing Palestinian Christians. They are attacking over the churches in Jerusalem. They are trying to usurp the rights of the Christian Palestinian in Jerusalem. And that is an attack over the integrated identity of Jerusalem city, the Islamic Christian identity of Jerusalem city. This is what Israel today is trying really to do against the Palestinian and in front of the international community. Hence, the existing administration of America, they announced by Biden that they will not be receiving Netanyahu in the upcoming near future. Having said that, we have to remember the bottom line, that this is a Western superpower project. So they will not compromise over the integrity of this regime, of this project. But of course, they want to reshape this creature which they have created it, as if the actual cultural story of the West of Frankenstein is envisaged or embodied by State of Israel, so-called State of Israel. This Frankenstein creature has been created by his master in the West from all evil powers, from different geographies of the world, and it happens that it is used as a tool to implement all evil whims and plans of this Western power whenever it is needed. Today, this evil creature is a burden over his master. So the whims and the bad intentions of this Western power, unfortunately, is still there. So they wanted to safeguard this evil creature, but in different reform. So they might revolt against Netanyahu, and that's what has happened before. They supported some internal politics to support some political parties inside the regime previously against Netanyahu, but at the end of the day, again why Netanyahu is refusing to receive, President Biden is refusing to receive Prime Minister Netanyahu of the Israeli regime in White House because of the internal conflict, and he is not doing the same when Netanyahu is committing crimes and killing our children in Palestine, in Gaza, in Jerusalem. They are besieging Gaza. They are allowing settlers. Today, they are claiming that there is a differences between military setup and the political setup inside Israel. This Ibn Gvir, the so-called Minister of National Security of Israeli regime, he is entering into Al-Aqsa Mosque, doing the sanctity of the shrines over there under the safeguard of the Israeli army and the Israeli police. The very organization where they are in differences because of their own internal politics, they are united against our own demands and committing atrocities. Ibn Gvir himself is supposed to face more than 53 criminal bails against him because of his violence approach and attitude against the Palestinian from the Israeli government itself before the government of Netanyahu. So we are facing today a very complicated situation. What we are left for as a Palestinian? We have left to our destiny of resistance. A resistance today is a reaction to the evil action of occupation which being sustained, which being continuous against our own people in Palestine by the Israeli regime for the last 74 years. This is what's to be understood by the whole international community, by all brothers, by the elites, by the researchers that do not look to the action of the day, to the resistance action of the day. Look to the big picture that these crimes have been perpetrated against our own civilian people, innocent people for the last 74 years by the Israeli occupation. Freedom is the biggest right which has been granted by the international law and the human rights organizations. This very integral and basic right has been snatched from our Palestinian people by this Israeli atrocities and Israeli occupation. Today, we've decided to go on our own because the international community did not listen to us very well. They did not stop the atrocities of this regime, which they feel today that its very evil regime is a moral burden over their own Western civilization or Western culture. Today, what is required from all of us to get united at the regional level by a local network. We in Iran, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Qatar, Syria, Aljazair, Yemen, all efforts should be to unite together to prevent the foreign intervention into our region in order to be able to move forward as strong as anything to be an independent, sovereign ummah, inshallah ta'ala. Then we will be able to face the only enemy of this ummah, that is the Israeli regime, and to finish this occupation and return to our homeland and free our first qibla, Al-Quds, Jerusalem. وَيَوْمَئِذٍ يَفْرَحُ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ بِنَصْرِ اللَّهِ. Thank you once again, Al-Bayt Association in Portugal, for this important conference. Thank you, distinguished guests, for giving me this time to talk to you. وَلَا تَنْسَوْنَا مِنْ دُعَائِكُمْ. Don't forget us in our prayers. The Palestinian, they are in intense need for your support and your solidarity and your prayers in such blessed days of Ramadan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
We are also privileged to have with us Professor Dr. Fuad Ezdi. Dr. Fuad Ezdi is from Tehran University. Professor Ezdi, keen observations on the geopolitical situation have been invaluable in understanding the complexities of international relations. I would like to welcome Dr. Fuad Ezdi, a keen observer of the geopolitical situation in the region. Thank you, Dr. Fawad Ezdi.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. We need to thank the organizers of this event, the Ahl Bayt Association in Portugal and UK, for hosting the program. We are commemorating the International Quds Day. We don't need to remind our audience that this day was designated by Imam Khomeini Rahmatullah alayh to commemorate the issue of Palestine as a sign for the Palestinian cause. And we have historically seen this day play an important role every year in terms of showing support for Palestine, showing the fact that the Palestinian cause continues to be an important issue for the Muslim world and also for all people who care about justice internationally. With the advent and victory of the Islamic Revolution, something important happened, and that was the issue of stopping the occupiers of Palestine to expand their aggression against the neighboring countries of Palestine. So when the Israelis attacked Lebanon, they were pushed back. When they engaged in military activities that caused difficulties in Syria and elsewhere, there were consequences. So that was the first step. The first step after the victory of Islamic Revolution was to make sure that the expansionist policies of the occupiers of Palestine is going to stop. The idea that Zionists had was to basically gradually take over the neighboring countries as well. And that wasn't possible because the Islamic Republic of Iran managed to help the Palestinians and the resistance front around occupied Palestine, and not just with rhetoric, but with bullets, with military aid, with supplies that made sure that the expansionist policies of Israel will not continue. So that was the first step. And this first step resulted in is going to result in the ultimate collapse of the system that the Zionists created in Palestine, because of the fact that they cannot expand out the difficulties that the Zionists have with each other, the internal problems that they have is going to result in the ultimate collapse of the system, the apartheid system that the Zionists have created. And the fact that the occupiers of Palestine have failed in their foreign policy, in their expansionist policies, is showing the people inside Palestine, the Palestinians whose land has been occupied, that it is possible to resist the occupiers. This has started with the people in Gaza. They realized that they can resist. They did, and that ultimately led to the Zionists leaving Gaza. And now, in the West Bank and in the territories that were occupied in 1948, we see a situation where people are taking up arms. They're defending themselves with weapons, and they're forcing the occupiers to leave the territories, seeing the example of what happened in southern Lebanon first, and then what happened in Gaza second. They realized that it is possible to engage the occupiers militarily, and they realized that the policies that thought you could negotiate with the occupiers and have some positive results have not materialized. They realized that the policy of negotiation was not going to help anyone except the Zionists. So with this realization, we see the current situation in Palestine, that the Palestinians are resisting and are resisting on a daily basis. And then we see the internal difficulties within the Zionist community, the religious Zionists and the non-religious Zionists are resulting in what we have witnessed in the last number of months. And so if you go back to the content that was provided in this forum in previous years, speakers were predicting these difficulties to surface. And now we see that what was predicted before is actually taking place as we speak. The fact is that a lot of Zionists came to Palestine not because they really believed in the ideas of Zionism. They came to Palestine because they thought there is an economic opportunity for them. They thought this is a place that they can make more money. And once they realize that the environment in occupied Palestine is not going to be an environment that's going to be welcoming to them, they're going to leave. And that's one of the reasons we see this diverse immigration, people actually leaving, Zionists actually leaving Palestine. This process of diverse immigration is going to continue with the difficulties. The occupiers of Palestine have reached a situation where they cannot fix the difficulties that they have created. And the Palestinian people have fully realized that the only way to resist the occupiers is through resistance, military resistance against the occupation. And given these two facts, I think we can be hopeful that in the next number of years, hopefully next year, we can see Palestine free from occupation. The one-state solution is something that's gaining a lot of attraction. We have Israeli intelligence services realizing and announcing in their internal documents that the majority of people in Palestine are actually Palestinians. In 1948 territories, 1967 territories. Since 2020, in the last 3 years, majority of people who live in those territories are actually Palestinians. So if you have a vote, one man, one vote policy today, you will not have Netanyahu as prime minister. You will have a Muslim Palestinian as the elected representative of the people that live there. And the apartheid state can prevent creation of a true democracy in Palestine for some time, but not forever. It's going to be difficult for the Western backers of the Zionist regime to continue their policies of support as this apartheid state continues to cause difficulties for the indigenous people of that region. So the hope is that as International Quds Day continues, we will see the goals that this day commemorates and highlights is going to be realized sooner than later, inshallah. Thank you very much for the time.
We have renowned Mazhar Barlas, a journalist and political analyst from Pakistan. Mr. Barlas' insightful analysis of the political situation has helped shape public discourse in his country. मैं शुक्रिया अदा करता हूँ जनाब मज़हर बरलास साहब का, पाकिस्तान के मारूफ एंकर, तज्जिया निगार, कालम निगार, शायर, खुशामदीद कहता हूँ और आज की इस कॉन्फ्रेंस में उनसे गुजारिश करूंगा कि फ़लस्तीन के मौजू पर गुफ्तगू फरमाएं।
बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। तमाम वो कान जो सुन रहे हैं और जिनके दिलों में कलमा तैयबा बस रहा है, उन सब की खिदमत में میری طرف سے سلام. میں یہ جو کانفرنس ہے بیت المقدس کے حوالے سے یہ منعقد کرنے پر اہل البیت ایسوسی ایشن کا خاص طور پر شکر گزار ہوں کہ انہوں نے ایک ایسے مسئلے پر کانفرنس کا انعقاد کیا جو ہم سب کا مسئلہ ہے، جو پوری امت مسلمہ کا مسئلہ ہے، بلکہ اگر میں یہ کہوں کہ پوری انسانیت کا مسئلہ ہے تو اس میں شک نہیں ہوگا، کیونکہ بیت المقدس میں انسانی حقوق کی پامالی بھی ہوتی ہے اور وہاں شیرخوار بچوں کو موت کی نیند سلا دیا جاتا ہے، وہاں عورتوں پر اور بزرگوں پر بھی ظلم و تشدد ہوتا ہے. یہ درینہ مسئلہ امت مسلمہ کے لیے کاہش جاں بنا ہوا ہے اور اس جو مسئلہ ہے اس سے کوئی ایسا حل نہیں نکل پا رہا. اس میں سمجھتا ہوں کہ امت مسلمہ کی غفلت بھی ہے، کاہلی بھی ہے، سستی بھی ہے، اور کہیں ہمیں یہ بھی ضرور یاد رکھنا چاہیے کہ مسلمانوں کا جذبہ حریت کہیں نہ کہیں کمزور پڑ چکا ہے. میں سرزمین فلسطین کے لوگوں کے جذبہ حریت کو سلام کرتا ہوں، مگر کیا کیجئے کہ نظر دوسرے مسلمانوں پر بھی پڑتی ہے، اور میں یہ کہنے پر مجبور ہوں کہ ہمارے مسلمان ملکوں میں بہت سے لوگ غافل ہیں. شاید لوگوں سے زیادہ بہت سے حکمران غافل ہیں. اور کیا ان لوگوں نے کبھی یہ سوچا ہے کہ یہ 60-70 سالہ زندگی اس کے بعد خدا کے ہاں جواب دہ ہونا ہے سب کو؟ کبھی یہ سوچا کہ کیا ہم اللہ تعالیٰ کو یہ چہرہ دکھا پائیں گے جس میں یہ ہو کہ ہم نے مظلوم مسلمانوں کی مدد نہیں کی، ہمارے بہن بھائیوں پر ظلم ہوتا رہا اور ہم خاموش رہے؟ جناب امام کا ایک فرمان مجھے یاد آ رہا ہے کہ ظلم پر خاموش رہنا بھی ظلم کی حمایت ہے، اور مظلوم کا ساتھ نہ دینا بھی ظلم کے مترادف ہے. میں کیا عرض کر سکتا ہوں، میں تو قلم کا ایک مسافر ہوں، گفتگو کا آدمی ہوں، اور لفظوں سے میرا رابطہ رہتا ہے. میں یہ لفظ بولتا ہوں یا لفظ لکھتا ہوں، اور میرے لفظ آپ کی سماعتوں کو چھوتے ہیں یا آپ کی خوبصورت نگاہیں ان پر پڑتی ہیں. میری کوشش ہوتی ہے کہ میں ہمیشہ سچ بولوں، سچ لکھوں، اور وہ باتیں لکھوں یا بولوں جو دلوں میں اتر جائیں. اور مجھے یہ بھی علم ہے کہ دلوں میں سچ کے سوا کچھ نہیں اترتا. بھلے باطل قوتوں کا بڑا راج ہو، مگر دلوں پر حکومت ہمیشہ سچ کی رہی ہے، حق کی رہی ہے. اگر میں جائزہ لوں تاریخی طور پر تو اس میں بھی مجھے امت مسلمہ کی کوتاہیاں نظر آتی ہیں، اور ان کوتاہیوں میں شاید مسلمان عوام اتنے ذمہ دار نہیں جتنے مسلمان ملکوں کے حکمران ذمہ دار ہیں۔ کیا جرم ہے ہمارے فلسطینی بہن بھائیوں کا زندگی جبر مسلسل کی طرح کاٹ رہے ہیں، زندگی زندانوں میں گزر رہی ہے، یا ان کی گلیوں میں بارود کی بو آتی ہے، اور فلسطین کے بچے ہتھیلیوں پہ جان لیے پھرتے ہیں۔ مجھے بہت دکھ کے ساتھ کہنا پڑتا ہے کہ فلسطین کی ہمسائیگی میں بسنے والے اکثر مسلمان حکمران خاموشی کا لباس پہنے ہوئے یہ اسرائیلی تماشا دیکھتے رہتے ہیں، مگر مجھے یہ بھی سمجھ نہیں آتی کہ جب ہم خود کو مومن یا مسلمان کہتے ہیں اور جب ہم کلمہ طیبہ کا اقرار کرتے ہیں تو پھر خوف کس چیز کا رہ جاتا ہے۔ مگر حیرت ہے، اتنی بڑی تعداد میں دنیا میں مسلمان ہیں مگر خوف کی چادر میں لپٹے ہوئے ہیں۔ ایسے لگتا ہے جیسے ان کی آنکھوں کے سامنے خوف کی تاریکی ہے، انہیں روشنی کوئی کرن دکھائی نہیں دیتی۔ میں یہاں پہ سید حسن نصر اللہ کو ضرور خراج عقیدت پیش کروں گا، اور ان جیسے بے شمار لوگ جو اپنے فلسطینی بہن بھائیوں کے لیے آزادی کی تڑپ کا جذبہ رکھتے ہیں، ان سب کو سلام کروں گا۔ اور یہ جو ہمارے مزاحمتی گروپ ہیں خطہ عرب میں، یہ انہی کی ہمت ہے، یہ انہی کا حوصلہ ہے، یا یہ انہی کا کارنامہ ہے کہ انہوں نے اسرائیل کے بڑھتے ہوئے قدموں کو روکا، ورنہ ڈیل آف سینچری تو ہو رہی تھی، ورنہ آپ کے کئی مسلمان ممالک ڈیل آف سینچری پر دستخط کرنے کے لیے تیار تھے، ورنہ اسرائیل کا پھیلاؤ تو بہت ہونے والا تھا۔ مگر آفرین ہے امت مسلمہ کے ان وجاہدوں پر، اور آفرین ہے شمع رسالت کے ان پروانوں پر، اور ایک داد دینا پڑتی ہے راہ حسین کے ان مسافروں کو جو اپنی جانیں قربان کرتے ہیں مگر اپنے جذبے کو جھکنے نہیں دیتے۔ آپ دیکھیے کہ استعماری طاقتوں نے خطہ عرب میں کہاں کہاں وار نہیں کیے۔ کیا آپ بھول گئے کہ شام میں کشت و خون کا بازار کس نے بنانے کی کوشش کی؟ کیا آپ بھول گئے یمن پہ دوائیوں اور رزق کا بند کرنا اور ایک محاصرہ کرنا کس کا کارنامہ تھا؟ کیا آپ لبنان کو بھول گئے؟ آپ بیروت کو بھول گئے؟ اور کیا آپ عراق اور ایران اور افغانستان کو بھول گئے؟ اور پاکستان میں بھی آپ دیکھیے کس طرح فرقہ وارانہ آگ میں کتنے لوگوں کو جھلسایا گیا۔ کیا یہ ایک سوال ہے کہ کیا غدار مسلمانوں ہی میں پیدا ہوتے ہیں؟ کسی اور ملک میں کیوں نہیں ہوتے؟ مجھے دکھ سے کہنا پڑتا ہے کہ وہ جو دھماکے کرنے والے تھے اور ان کے جو سہولت کار تھے وہ کلمہ طیبہ پڑھتے تھے، اور انہوں نے اپنے بھائیوں کی جانیں لیں، انہوں نے مسلمان بھائیوں کی عمارتوں کو نقصان پہنچایا، ہمارے کئی ممالک کھنڈرات میں تبدیل ہو گئے۔ اس سے کیا ہوا؟ جہاں مسلمانوں کو جانی نقصان ہوا، وہاں مسلمانوں کو مالی نقصان بھی ہوا۔ جو مسلمان مضبوط افواج رکھتے تھے وہ کمزور ہو گئے۔ جن مسلمان ملکوں کی معیشت اچھی بھلی تھی، جن کے لوگ بڑے سکھ سکون سے رہ رہے تھے، وہ سکون ان سے چھن گیا۔ مگر اس سارے منظر میں ہمیں یہ سوچنا چاہیے کہ یہ سارا کھیل سجانے میں جو اعلی کار بنے سو بنے، تو جو 7 سمندر پار سے استعماری طاقت ان کو استعمال کر رہی تھی، اس کا بھی تو قصور ہے، مگر اس سے زیادہ میں قصور اعلی کاروں کا سمجھتا ہوں۔ لیکن گزشتہ چند سالوں میں یہ ہوا کہ ایک تو اسرائیل کو غزہ کی پٹی سے وہ جواب ملا جس کی انہیں توقع نہیں تھی، عرب دنیا سے انہیں مزاحمت کا سامنا کرنا پڑا، اور ہمارے مزاحمتی گروپ جو ہیں انہوں نے اسرائیل کے ناجائز ارادوں کو خاک میں ملا کر رکھ دیا۔ اس سب کے باوجود ایک سوال پیدا ہوتا ہے کہ یہ جو بین الاقوامی دنیا ہے، اس میں بڑی طاقتوں کا کردار کیا ہے؟ بدقسمتی سے کوئی مسلمان ملک بڑی طاقت نہیں ہے۔ ملکوں کی سیاست میں امریکہ، روس اور چین کا نام بہت لیا جاتا ہے۔ مڈل ایسٹ میں سمجھتا ہوں کہ جہاں مزاحمتی گروپوں نے کردار ادا کیا، وہاں ہمیں روس کی وہ ہمدردیاں بھی نہیں بھولنی چاہیے کہ انہوں نے امریکہ کے ایک ہواری کے پنجے جو بڑھنا چاہتے تھے وہ نہیں بڑھنے دیے۔ اسی طرح چین نے معاشی محاذ پر ایک نکیل ڈال رکھی ہے۔ اب چونکہ ایک صلح کا موسم آیا ہے اور اس خطے کے 2 بڑے ملکوں یعنی ایران اور سعودی عرب کو ملانے میں چین نے کردار ادا کیا ہے۔ چین کے کردار سے ایک بات واضح ہوتی ہے کہ اس خطے میں امریکی پالیسی کمزور ہوئی ہے، ورنہ سعودی عرب کہاں صلح کرتا تھا، اور چائنا کے کہنے پر، یعنی چائنا ضامن بن گیا سعودی عرب اور ایران کے تعلقات کی بحالی میں، تو اس کا مطلب یہ ہوا کہ اس خطے میں امریکی قدم ڈگمگا گئے اور چین کے قدم جمنے لگے۔ اب امریکہ اور چین میں ایک بڑا فرق ہے۔ امریکیوں نے ہمیشہ جنگوں سے کمایا، امریکی ہمیشہ اپنے دوستوں کو بھی لڑاتے رہے، امریکی ہمیشہ اسلحہ بیچنے کے بہانے ڈھونڈتے رہے۔ امریکیوں نے ملکوں کو لوٹا، اور اس لوٹ مار میں انہوں نے دنیا پہ جنگیں مسلط کی، مگر چین اس سے مختلف ہے۔ چین ملکوں میں بندرگاہیں بنا رہا ہے، چین ملکوں میں منصوبے بنا رہا ہے، چین ملکوں میں سڑکیں بنا رہا ہے، چین دنیا کی رہنمائی کر رہا ہے۔ تو ہمیں اس وقت یہ جو بدلتی ہوئی صورتحال ہے، یہ جو مغرب سے عالمی طاقت شفٹ ہو رہی ہے مشرق کی طرف، ہمیں اس وقت مشرق کے ساتھ کھڑا ہونا چاہیے، چونکہ مشرق کی سوچ امن کی ہے، آزادی کی ہے، سکون کی ہے اور صلح کی ہے، جبکہ مغرب کی سوچ جنگوں کی ہے، جنگوں سے لوٹ مار کی ہے۔ اور آپ دیکھیے کہ گزشتہ نصف صدی میں، یا بلکہ اس سے بھی زیادہ سال آپ چند اور ملا لیجئے، کہ مسلمانوں کا خون بہا، مسلمان ملک برباد ہوئے، مگر انہیں کہیں انصاف نہیں ملا، کوئی وہاں مداخلت نہیں روک سکا۔ یہ بھی یہاں مذاق ہوتا رہا کہ ملک ہمارا تھا، قابض کوئی اور ہو گیا، اور جو قابض ہوا اس نے خوب لوٹ مار کی۔ مجھے تو اقوام متحدہ کو بھی یہ کہتے ہوئے عار محسوس نہیں ہو رہا کہ اقوام متحدہ بھی مسلمان ملکوں کے ساتھ انصاف نہیں کر سکی۔ اس تنظیم نے مسلمان ملکوں کی تباہی پر عجب طرح سے خاموشی اختیار کیے رکھی۔ اس تنظیم نے انسانی حقوق کی پامالیوں کو نہیں دیکھا، اور خاص طور پر امریکی اشاروں پر جو انسانی حقوق کی تذلیل اسرائیلی کرتے ہیں اس کو سینے سے لگائے رکھا، اور وہاں بالکل ایک ڈٹھائی کے ساتھ اس تنظیم کا روپ نظر آیا۔ میں تو کبھی کبھی سوچتا ہوں کہ جیسے اقبال کہا کرتے تھے کہ تہران ہو مشرق کا جنیوا، یعنی دیکھیے علامہ اقبال کی رحمۃ اللہ علیہ کی سوچ، کس قدر ویژنری آدمی تھے، کس دور میں وہ کہہ رہے تھے، اور آج وہ باتیں ان کی سچ ثابت ہو رہی ہیں۔ تو مسلمان ملکوں کو حالات کی اس گردش میں اس بات پہ غور کرنا چاہیے کہ کون انہیں آپس میں لڑاتا ہے، کون ان کے ملکوں میں خون ریزی کا بندوبست کرتا ہے، کون ان کے ملکوں کو برباد کرتا ہے۔ میں ایک مرتبہ پھر اہل البیت ایسوسی ایشن کا شکریہ ادا کرتا ہوں کہ انہوں نے اس موضوع کو چنا اور اس پہ ایک کانفرنس منعقد کی۔ اس کی جزا انہیں خدائے بزرگ و برتر ضرور دے گا، چونکہ خدائے لم یزل کے ہاں جو بھی حق کے لیے آواز بلند کرتا ہے یا حق کی آوازوں کو جمع کرتا ہے یا حق کی آوازوں کو آگے بڑھاتا ہے، اس کا اجر عظیم ہے۔ تو اللہ تعالیٰ اس اجر عظیم سے نوازے ان تمام منتظمین کو۔ بہت شکریہ۔
Our next speaker is Barrister Baligh Jabbara, a represented lawyer and activist from Palestine. Mr. Jabbara has tirelessly worked towards the protection of human rights and the rule of law. We are honored to have Mr. Jabbara with us. Thank you, Mr. Jabbara, and welcome to our international conference.
Thank you, Ahl al-Bayt organizations, organization Portugal and UK for organizing this international conference on the day of Al-Quds, the last Jum'ah of Ramadan, and giving me this opportunity to speak about my beloved land and homeland, Palestine, in which to express what's happening and the complicated and escalated situation that occurring nowadays in Palestine. And we face these things each Ramadan and each month, actually. But in Ramadan, it's like more active and more violation occurring because we face the issue of the Israelis entering Al-Aqsa Mosque and provoking Al-Musallin and the Muslims who are attending Al-Mosque, claiming that they want to do the Qurban or sacrifice their Qurbani because of their Easter celebration and what's happening in Jerusalem. Like also last year and the year before, we had also like Saif al-Quds, and this year we're having Saif al-Quds happening. And if you see also a few days ago what's been happening, you know, we have that the people trying to resist from the north of Palestine for the Lebanese camps and the Palestinians like angry, and from Gaza resistance movements. You know, I in this occasion and about the Palestinian cause, I mean, I'm sure everybody knows the background and the history of what occurred into Palestine, and that Palestinian cause is an unjust cause since 1948 and even before. They've been the Israelis and the Zionist movement trying to steal and take and buy lands from Palestinians through force, through like their power, and then 1948 the war, and what happened after that, and we have a realistic Israeli kayan there, Zionism, that they do violation every day. And in 1967, the Naksa, and they took also the West Bank and Gaza at one point. Was until like 2006 that they get out of Gaza. And Jerusalem, 1967, they took also the other half of Jerusalem from the Arab world. Us as Palestinian, we've been resisting, fighting. We had the BLO all the way, as our umbrella. But unfortunately, after Oslo, everything went down, and then we trying to make peace with them. But you cannot do peace with governments and Israelis who doesn't want peace. And since we have this government in power, Netanyahu government, and he's been ruling there for the last 20 years, almost or more, going off for 1 month, 5 months, and coming back into power. And recently he's got the worst government, even for the Israeli people themselves. Too much right, fanatic, religious, racist, apartheid state, violation everywhere, building settlements with justification, with decisions from the cabinets. And I mean, even in the time of Trump, Netanyahu was in power and he was violating every time. The violation going on and on and on for years and years. In the organization we work with and the BDS movement in the UK and other organizations that around the world, in South America, in Europe, and some in the Middle East, say, understanding what's happening and they see the violations. But some other groups that they don't, and they went to naturalization with the Israelis and making what they call peace trade or peace economic agreement, which is unacceptable and couldn't be recognized. The only way for the Palestinians and for us to get what is belong to us and what is our land, Palestine, is to resist this occupation and this violation and to stop what's going on there, because you cannot gain by accepting and giving up and letting go, which is it's a shame. It's a shame that we have given too much, and it's been also taken from us too much, which is at the end of the day, the Palestinian people are fed up and they want to live, but they cannot live with no dignity and no respect to themselves and to their own people and their own land. That's what we're saying also to the Palestinian Authority to come forward and agree to united with the Hamas and Jihad and work together as one group with Fatah movement, Hamas, Jihad, all the Palestinians groups under the BLO umbrella or under whatever umbrella, to make sure that we are unified before the enemy. And it's obvious those people are our enemies. We're not going to go to the peace negotiation or sit with them in the same table again and talk about peace after killing our people in Naples, in Jenin, everywhere. I mean, everybody understands what's going on, but nobody's taking a move like a serious or actual move to stop this happening. Even Netanyahu, nobody's stopping them. Government of Ben Gvir and other people who's getting into Al-Aqsa now every few days. Apart from those Palestinians, young guys, and then also women's and kids stopping for them in Al-Aqsa and Bab al-Amud and Sheikh Jarrah last year and this year always. They're doing violation and trying to get also to Sheikh Jarrah now and take lands and build what they call their own land or what settlements. About 1 month ago, they have decided to build 9 settlements decided by their what called the Israeli cabinet government, which is, agreed before the whole world, before America, before the UK, before everybody, giving this declaration that they're building non-settlement on a occupied land, which is recognized by the world and by the United Nations that the West Bank is an occupied land which is not belong to the Israelis to build on it in the first place. Instead of solving the problem, the Israelis, they're just making it bigger and bigger, and then they unsolve it. We have settlers in the West Bank, and we have problems with them. We have settlers around all of Jerusalem, and they're starting to take more lands and more lands from us. And I mean, also, yeah, in London, everywhere in the world, in most of the capitals in Europe, we go the last 5 days to talk, and if Al-Quds Day, and we talk about Jerusalem, and we do everything about Jerusalem. So, to what extent we can work together? We have to be unified as Muslims and as Arab. But no. The only problem that, you know, what I see it is like within the Palestinian leadership that we have to get one unity of Palestinian working together for the best interest of Palestine and the Palestinian people. Our problem is with our leadership, either Palestinian leadership and the leadership also of our boards, that they're not also helping, most of them. To an extent, I mean, you know, in Palestine, we have like, you know, also now Ramadan, Easter for the Christians, and the Christians also facing a lot of difficulties in Palestine. Unfortunately, not a lot of people know what the Palestinian Christians face, who are like, you know, nationalists, and they love Palestine and they are Palestinians. The Israelis, they don't care who this government of Netanyahu that, like, you know, has cleared and declared its face, in which we now can take the opportunity and so say that this government of the occupation and the Israelis is real and a real apartheid and racist state against the Palestinian, like taking our lives in Jenin and in Nablus, violating all the international agreements and the Geneva Conventions in the West Bank and in the camps and everywhere against the Palestinians, with no mercy, with no respect to United Nations resolution or decisions, in which everybody can see that, and they have shown that in the media with no respect to any agreement, any conventions, any Oslo agreement, what they call it, or the coordination of security between them and the Palestinian Authority. Again, I will say, like, you know, this is the lack of leadership and the lack of decision making by the Palestinian leadership, which led us to have this government enter our houses, take our brothers and sisters into jail with no respect and no fear of the international community or understanding what the consequences may be, because they have they have nobody to prevent them from doing so. Actually, at one point, like, you know, we had like even the Brits or the EU or the United Nations to say something, but now what they're saying, only like they condemn what's happening in Palestine, and they condemn what the Israeli government is doing by bit, but they cannot see the whole situation and the whole things in the ground, what's happening by the Israeli government. I mean, if it comes to me as let's say I'm not Palestinian and I'm like you brothers and sisters, like supporting the Palestinian cause and understand what's happening there, it is a just cause. And I'm working with the British people, with even like, you know, Jewish, who's against the Zionism and against the Israeli violation in Palestine. And that's just, we understand that there's a just cause. People have to stand by it and understand that the Palestinian people need to go back to their lands, reside and live in their own land, and to be in Palestine, and to keep Al-Quds as it's Al-Quds, as the capital city of Palestine. But again, the lack of Muslim unity, the lack of Arab unity, and the lack of Palestinian leadership as aiming for resisting this occupation and stopping them from doing what doing, which led us to this situation. hopefully, I mean, I do take part every Ramadan in the last Jum'ah of Al-Quds Day, and then Al-Quds is like, the idea and very important for us as Muslims and as Arab. And as I said as well, today is the Eid Good Friday for our Christians brothers in Jerusalem, and also who has like been violated. Lots of Christians in Palestine, in Bethlehem, has been kicked out of their homes, but it is also not shown in the media. The Israelis basically they want everybody in Palestine out of Palestine. Christians, Jewish Palestinians, Muslim Palestinians, they don't want something called Palestinian in Palestine. They want something called Israeli, and they make it under the name of Jewish. Now, the Jewish religion is not as its Zionism, and it's not like the Zionism itself. They are like, a state of power. They take in the lands and everything as they took it in 1948 and 67, and on and on. What I'm saying, I mean, it's been said, and it will be said again and again. I hope, like, nothing will happen more in Palestine, but we cannot stop it. And again, I thank Ahl al-Bayt Association in Portugal and UK for organizing this international conference on Al-Quds Day. And as we say, Al-Hurriya al-Falastin.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is also our pleasure to welcome Sandarila Malazi, a young human activist from Poland. Ms. Malazi's passion for social justice and equality is truly inspiring. Thank you very much, Ms. Malazi.
Assalamu alaikum. First, I want to thank you for the invitation and thank the Ahlul Bayt Association in Portugal and UK for organizing this video conference and for keeping alive the tradition of remembrance of Palestine case on Al-Quds Day, which was initiated by Ayatollah Khomeini. Because it's important that this case was still alive in our mind, just as the problem is still alive on the occupied Palestine lands. And as long as this problem exists and is unresolved, and until the Palestinian people get justice, it's our duty to constantly reminding about the oppression of this artificial Zionist creation and to support our brothers and sisters and all oppressed people in Palestine. And even if it can't be military or physically support from an ordinary person, using our voice to proclaim the truth, to speak the truth, and demanding justice is also a kind of support and fight for better world. Because in this way we don't allow the memory of the Palestine to be perished. The same as every year during the Ashura or Arba'in, we don't let the memory of Karbala to be perished. So therefore, we must cherish this memory and to show enemy that we are here, and we will not give up until the final collapse of this terrorist state and the final victory of truth over falsehood. So Israel is satanic state. It's a bandit creation founded on massacre of the civilians and banished them from their homes. Civilians who, in reflex of their humanity, opened their arms to them, and this is the way, unfortunately, how Jewish guests treated their host and repaid them back for their help. So, but their greedy didn't end here. We remember, like after Six-Day War in 1967, apart from the West Bank and Gaza, they also occupied Sinai and Syrian Golan Heights. extending their fake borders on other Arab states. So it can indicate that the plan to create so-called Great Israel is still alive in their crazy minds. And of course, when United Nations issued resolution which clearly say that Jewish settlements are illegal and Israel must withdraw from the occupied lands, they declared in their arrogance that they're not gonna abide any resolutions of United Nations, and they even trying to blackmail the United Nations Council in their madness. I want to mention the hypocrisy of the Zionists related to my country, Poland. So I will back a little to the history, to the Second World War, when Poland was under German occupation, and Poland was totally ruined, especially after Warsaw uprising. The capital city suffered huge losses. And in that time, the Germans set up a concentration camp and labor camps in Poland, which was originally built for Polish people. And Polish people were the dominant group of prisoners there, especially in the first period of this operation. And mostly there was Polish soldiers or political prisoners, and Jews began to be brought there more in later years. And of course, we had in that time some community, also Jewish community in Poland, but their nationality was Polish because Zionist creation didn't exist in that time. So it was Polish Jewish. It was 1939 till 45. So, and when Zionist state was established and those great Zionist lobbies started operating in full force, like for example, lobby of Holocaust, they started to write their own history about Second World War. And they usurped the concentration camp as if they were only victims of this war, and started blaming the Polish people for their misfortunes and inventing these fake stories that Poland was taking part in the Holocaust. It was from their motivation was political reason to exert them more international pressure as a form of blackmailing for their robbery. I will tell you for a moment why robbery in Poland, but first I want to mention a short story about their passion to falsification of history also. So a few years ago, I remember we made the protest in front of the Zionist embassy after another attack on Gaza when many civilians died. And some guy, some Jew was there near to embassy, and he approached us and he approached me. And after a short conversation, I found out that he studied in Israel, he lived there, and he asked us why we are protesting. He couldn't understand in his mind what we want, because what he told us, when the Jews come to Palestine, there was a desert, empty land, and those Palestinian refugees who live now in the camps, when I ask about them, they're left because they wanted. No, this is what he was learned in the school in Zionist regime. So, and also interesting is that he said similar story about Poland, that the Poland before was Israel and Polish people kicked them out from here. So it was their land. So this is really amazing, like how strong is brainwashing in the Zionist state from their childhood. So, and they write this all fake stories. They change the history. And many years after the war in Poland, when the witnesses of the Second World War and the victims of the war already died, the Zionist government demands compensation from Poland for the lost property of Polish Jew, property which was destroyed by Germany during the war, and which Polish people rebuilt with their own hands after the war. And also they demand compensation for Jews who didn't leave behind any inheritor, any children, any family. And I think in every country the law is the same, that when some citizen, and the Jewish in that time was Polish citizens, when citizens some country die, the country is inheritor of their property. So they go out with this demand of compensation to Poland, to the country who was a victim of Hitler's policy, and try to force us to pay to Zionist regime, to their government, for the property of the people who wasn't even Israeli but Polish citizens, because Zionist state didn't exist in that time. And we can even also be sure that it belonged to some Jews, because many falsified documentations appear. So it's a huge business in Poland now. And this is another example of Zionist gangster mentality and hypocrisy, because they build their satanic regime on the massacre of Palestinian civilians. They steal their land and houses, and they don't give the Palestinians the right to compensation for the property which they have stolen, and they don't give them the right to return to their land from which they expelled them, but in the same time they demand money from the country which didn't hurt them at all, and don't own them anything. Like why we was under the occupation? You want money? Go to Germany. They already did it, but it's a different story. So this is this double standard of this master race, how we call it, because that's how they behave. Like they was the chosen ones. They better than the rest of humanity. So. And in the conclusion, this is clear that Zionists don't want a peace. They never wanted the peace. They are not interested either about fair and justice solution. All they always wanted is more land, more money, more power over the world, and nothing will stop them against achieve their goals. That's why I don't believe in any two-state solutions, because they had their chance and they didn't took it. I don't believe also in sitting down to the table with someone from whom you can expect nothing but betrayal. So I only believe and also pray for it, that if we really truly want to peace on the world, Israel must be destroyed. So this is the only way to resolve most problem of the world. So may Allah hasten return of our master Imam Mahdi alayhi salam, and grant us relief.
Ladies and gentlemen, joining us from Portugal is Mufti Sheikh David Munir, the Grand Imam of Portugal. Mufti Sheikh Munir has been a beacon of wisdom and guidance for the Muslim community in Portugal. We are delighted to have with us today in our international conference. I would like to request Mufti Sheikh Munir to say a few words regarding the Palestinian and Baitul Muqaddas. Thank you, Mufti Munir.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, we are thankful to the Ahlul Bayt Association of Portugal requesting us to participate in this conference or to say something about Quds, and especially what is been happening for the last few days. If you look at the history, we may say Islamic history to be more basically, we know that unfortunately the Muslim Ummah have all the ingredients to be strong, but we are not. Why Quds is one of the holiest place? I don't have to inform you because majority of the people, they know it. It was our first Qibla. And it was, it is a place where a lot of prophets and messengers went through. And obviously, we all had the same respect for Quds. And we will have it. Quds, it is in our heart. And it will maintain, inshallah. Maybe the way we act or the way we react. But as I was saying, we have all the ingredients to be the most powerful nation. When I mean powerful, does not mean that to frighten people or people to be scared. No, no, no. Islam is the opposition. Islam wants you to feel peace. That is the meaning of Islam. Islam means peace. Islam means to live in a place where you feel comfortable. And Islam does transmit this peace. So what I mean to say is, we have the ingredients and we are not using it. Okay. I mean, if you look at ourselves, okay, as a Muslim, obviously, there is a lack of accepting the other. I'm not saying that the lack of understanding, okay. We are very much limited in our comfort zone. We don't respect others. We don't even try to hear his opinion, what he has to say. So, unfortunately, we are assisting. I mean, there is no words to explain. Okay. Obviously, we were all, for about 1 year, we are all concerned about Ukraine, the war in the Ukrainians. We have to help the Ukrainians. We have to help the Ukrainian government to fight the Russians. I'm not saying that it has to be a war. No, I'm against. Okay. But if we compare the attitude of some countries with some people and with some places, the only word which comes in my mind is hypocrisy, munafiq. Well, the politicians, the leaders, they have to be munafiq, they have to be hypocrite to maintain in power. But not all, obviously, then people may misunderstand me. But there is lack of sincerity in the politicians, lack of humanity, okay? And we speak about the war in Ukraine, and we are ignoring the brutal massacre, occupation of Palestine. We are speaking about it and nothing else. I mean, there is no changes. And day by day, the people of Palestine are suffering more, and we are just watching, like a statue. Now, it is painful, obviously. If it is it is not only a political problem in my point of view, and obviously I'm just giving my point of view, and you are not obliged to follow my point of view. Obviously, you have your own point of views. When there is a disrespect in a holy place where the Muslims consider to be the holiest place, and if you disrespect the mosques and you enter Al-Aqsa and you start beating people, innocent people, and you don't respect who is man, women, old. I mean, if others they do, you call violence. But when others they do it, we have another word for it. The same thing. Now, just to finalize, I have no solution, unfortunately, for the case of Palestine, unless we all be humanity, politicians, leaders. If we respect the life of others, then we may speak about solution. And if you don't respect the life of others, then I don't think in the near future there will be any solid solution. May Allah create a situation so that all of us live in peace. All of us can live in a way that we should not feel that we are being oppressed. Okay. Now, just to finalize, a thing came to my mind just recently. I mean, you see, Alhamdulillah, two Islamic countries, again, they try to create or to better their relation. Obviously, I'm talking about the Saudi Arabia and the Islamic Republic of Iran. We know that they are creating a good relation. They have made an agreement, or they met, the foreign ministers of both countries, they met. Where did they meet? Now, this is the question. Where did these two Muslim foreign ministers meet? And who was the sponsor? Who was the sponsor to create or to retie the relation between these two Islamic countries? Where it was? It was not in an Islamic country. It was not done by the Muslim leaders, Muslim politicians, or Muslim religious. Now, this is our situation. Think about it. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ الْمُبِينُ.
And last but not least, we have Allama Amin Shahidi, the founder and head of Ummat-e-Wahida Pakistan. Allama Shahidi's vision for a united and peaceful Pakistan is truly remarkable. We are honored to have Allama Amin Shahidi. हम शुक्रिया अदा करते हैं अहलुल बैत एसोसिएशन और अपने मीडिया पार्टनर्स की तरफ से जनाब अल्लामा अमीन शहीदी का कि उन्होंने अपनी रमज़ान की मसरूफियात में से वक्त निकाला हमारे आज की इस कॉन्फ्रेंस के लिए। मैं उनका शुक्रिया भी अदा करता हूं और उनसे गुजारिश करता हूं कि आज के इस मौजू पर गुफ्तगू फरमाएं जनाब अल्लामा मोहम्मद अमीन शहीदी।
औज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम व बिही नस्तईन। मैं अहलुल बैत एसोसिएशन का शुक्रगुज़ार हूँ कि उन्होंने आज की इस खूबसूरत तकरीब का एहतमाम किया है और एक ऐसे मौजू पर किया है जिसकी हैसियत भी आलमी है और ज़रूरत भी अक़वाम आलम को है। फ़लस्तीन और क़ुद्स का मौजू किसी ख़ास मुआशरे, किसी ख़ास कौमियत या किसी ख़ास ज़बान और नज़रिए से मुताल्लिक़ नहीं है। फ़लस्तीन انسانی موضوع ہے، اسی طرح جس طرح سے مسجد اقصیٰ پر صہیونیوں کا قبضہ انسانی موضوع ہے۔ گزشتہ تقریباً 7 دہائیوں سے جب سے صہیونی حکومت تشکیل پائی، جب سے فلسطین کی اس مظلوم سرزمین سے مظلوم فلسطینیوں کو در بدر کر کے پوری دنیا میں منتشر کر دیا گیا، جب سے برطانیہ اور یورپ نے فلسطینیوں کے حق پر ڈاکہ ڈالنے اور عالم اسلام کے سینے پر خنجر گھونپنے کے لیے صہیونی حکومت تشکیل دے کر اس سرزمین کو ان کے مرکز کے طور پر منتخب کیا، اور اس کے نتیجے میں لاکھوں فلسطینی دنیا بھر میں دربدر ہوئے، اور اب بھی ان کی 6ٹھی 7ویں 8ویں نسل پوری دنیا میں دربدر ہے، سیریا میں، اردن میں، افریقی ممالک میں، یورپی ممالک میں۔ لیکن وہ کون سی آگ ہے جو فلسطینی قوم کو اب تک اپنے کاز کے ساتھ، اپنی زمین کے ساتھ، اپنے عقیدے کے ساتھ اور اپنی ویلیوز اور اقدار کے ساتھ وابستہ رکھے ہوئے ہے، اور ہر روز گرنے والے خون کے باوجود نہ ان کے حوصلے میں کمی ہے، نہ ان کی ہمت میں کوئی کمی نظر آتی ہے، بلکہ اس کے برعکس ان کا چھوٹا سا بچہ بھی پوری طاقت کے ساتھ، پوری جرأت کے ساتھ صہیونیوں کے مقابلے میں غلیل لے کر توپ کے سامنے، ٹینک کے سامنے، مشین گنوں کے سامنے، کلاشن کوفوں کے سامنے اور سر سے پاؤں تک مسلح اسرائیلی فوجیوں کے سامنے پوری طاقت اور پورے جذبے ایمانی کے ساتھ کھڑا ہوتا ہے۔ یہ ان کے اندر موجود مظلومیت اور اس مظلومیت کی دی ہوئی طاقت ہے۔ فلسطین مظلوم رہا اور آج بھی مظلوم ہے، اور سب سے بڑی مظلومیت ان کی یہ ہے کہ ان کا خون گرتا بھی ہے اور اقوام متحدہ تماشائی اور خاموش نظر آتی ہے۔ ان کی سب سے بڑی مظلومیت یہ ہے کہ یورپ میں ایک کتا مر جائے تو سارا عالمی میڈیا اس پر چیخ اٹھتا ہے، اور فلسطین میں ہر روز انسانی خون ان صہیونی درندوں کے ہاتھوں گرتا ہے، ہر روز وہ گھروں کو مسمار کرتے ہیں، ہر روز نہتی آبادیوں پر حملہ کرتے ہیں، لیکن اس کے باوجود نہ یورپ کے لب ہلتے ہیں، نہ امریکیوں کے منہ کھلتے ہیں، اور نہ ہی برطانیہ اس پر کچھ بولتا ہے، اور نہ ہی اقوام عالم کے اندر اس کے رد عمل میں کوئی ایک اس طرح کا انسانی ہمدردی کی بنیاد پر بیان سامنے آتا ہے۔ عرب ممالک بھی خاموش ہیں، دیگر اقوام بھی خاموش ہیں۔ ایک زمانہ تھا جب فلسطین کے مسئلے کو عرب اسرائیل مسئلہ بنانے کی کوشش کی گئی، اور عرب دنیا اس حوالے سے کسی نہ کسی طرح سے جنبش اور حرکت دکھاتی تھی، لیکن آج وہ جذبہ بھی مر چکا ہے۔ آج عجیب صورتحال تو یہ ہے کہ بظاہر اسرائیل کو اپنا دشمن ماننے والے تمام ممالک رفتہ رفتہ اسرائیل کے ساتھ اپنے تعلقات قائم کر رہے ہیں، سفارتی تعلقات قائم ہو رہے ہیں، کئی ممالک میں ان کے سفارت خانے کھل چکے ہیں، اور گویا انہوں نے اسرائیل کے فلسطین پر قبضے کو اور صہیونیت کی اس غاصب حکومت کو قانونی طور پر تسلیم کر لیا ہے۔ وہی خواب جو امریکہ نے دیکھا تھا بالفور معاہدے کے نتیجے میں، وہی خواب جو برطانیہ نے دیکھا تھا، اس کی عملی تعبیر اس وقت سعودیوں کی پالیسی کی صورت میں، یو اے ای کی پالیسی کی صورت میں، بحرین اور کویت کی پالیسیوں کی صورت میں ہمیں نظر آ رہی ہے۔ اب ایسی صورتحال میں کون فلسطینیوں کی حمایت کرے گا؟ کون مسجد اقصیٰ کی آزادی کی بات کرے گا؟ کون مسجد اقصیٰ کی حرمت کی پامالی پر لب کھولے گا؟ حکومتیں تو یہ کام نہیں کر سکتی، نہ حکومتوں کو اتنی ہمت ہے، چونکہ ان کی پالیسیز اسرائیلی اور عالمی اسٹیبلشمنٹ کی پالیسیز سے ہم آہنگ ہیں۔ لہٰذا ایسے موقع پر اگر کسی نے لب کھولنا ہے تو وہ مسلم عوام ہے، ایسے موقع پر اگر کسی نے لب کھولنا ہے تو ہر وہ قوم ہے جس کے سینے میں ایک انسان کا دل دھڑکتا ہو۔ اگر ایسے موقع پر مظلوم کی حمایت کرنی ہے تو ہر اس شخص نے کرنی ہے جو بغیر تفریق مذہب، مسلک، دین اور جغرافیہ کے انسانیت کے نام پر جینا بھی چاہتا ہو اور انسان کی انسانیت کو بچانا بھی چاہتا ہو۔ ایسی صورتحال میں امام خمینی کی بارگاہ میں ہزاروں بار سلام عرض کروں گا، جنہوں نے فلسطین کے موضوع کو ہمیشہ ایک نئی زندگی دینے کے لیے رمضان المبارک کے آخری جمعے کو فلسطینیوں سے مخصوص قرار دیا، بیت المقدس سے مخصوص قرار دیا، اور ہر سال آخری جمعے میں پوری دنیا کے اندر مظلوموں کی حمایت کا جذبہ رکھنے والے انسان، چاہے وہ کرسچن ہوں، مسلمان ہوں، یہودی ہوں، حتیٰ جن کے دلوں میں مظلوم کی حمایت ہے وہ نکل آتے ہیں، جن کے دلوں میں غاصب اور ظالم سے نفرت ہے وہ نکل آتے ہیں۔ تو گویا ان فلسطینیوں کی حمایت اللہ کے مظلوم بندوں کی حمایت ہے۔ ان فلسطینیوں سے اظہار یکجہتی مظلوموں سے اظہار یکجہتی ہے۔ چاہے کوئی بھی قوم ہو، انسانی فطرت ہے ظلم سے نفرت کرنا اور مظلوم کی حمایت کرنا۔ تو اس حوالے سے میری بھی ذمہ داری ہے، آپ کی بھی ذمہ داری ہے، ہر مسلمان کی بھی ذمہ داری ہے، ہر انسان کی ذمہ داری ہے کہ فلسطین کی حمایت میں لب کھولے، فلسطین کی حمایت میں قلم اٹھائے، فلسطین کی حمایت میں جہاں جو کچھ کر سکتا ہے وہ ضرور کرے۔ آج کی یہ کانفرنس اس حوالے سے ایک انتہائی خوبصورت اور انسان دوستانہ قدم ہے۔ یہ کانفرنس اپنی ذمہ داریوں کی ادائیگی کے لیے ایک اٹھتا ہوا قدم ہے۔ اس طرح کی کانفرنسیں منعقد ہونی بھی چاہیے اور اس سے آگے بڑھ کر انسانوں کو بیدار کرنا چاہیے۔ ان دنوں جو کچھ فلسطین میں ہو رہا ہے، جو کچھ ان دنوں مسجد اقصی میں کیا گیا ہے، گزشتہ ان ایام میں، ان 4-5 دنوں میں، اسی ہفتے کے اندر جس طرح سے صہیونی درندوں نے جوتوں سمیت مسجد اقصی کی حرمت کو پامال کیا، چھوٹی چھوٹی بچیوں پر بھی رحم نہیں کیا، روزے داروں پر رحم نہیں کیا، قرآن پڑھنے والوں پر رحم نہیں کیا، مسجد کی اس مبارک اور مقدس فضا کے احترام کو پامال کیا، گولیاں بھی چلائیں، لوگوں کو زخمی بھی کیا، حتیٰ نماز پر کھڑے لوگوں کو دھکے دے کر مسجد سے نکال کر مسجد پر تالا لگانے کی کوشش کی۔ تو یہ انسانی بنیادی ترین حقوق سے بھی نہ صرف انحراف ہے بلکہ شدید ترین پامالی ہے۔ اور ایسے موقع پر اقوام متحدہ کا خاموش رہنا، اور اگر کسی ایسے عالمی ادارے کی طرف سے فلسطینیوں کی حمایت اور اسرائیلی اقدامات کے خلاف کوئی قرارداد پیش کرنے کی کوشش کی جائے تو امریکیوں کا فوری طور پر اس قرارداد کو روک دینا اور یورپ کا اور برطانیہ کا اس قدم کی حمایت کرنا اور مظلوم فلسطینیوں پر ہونے والے ظلم اور ستم پر صرف خاموشی نہیں بلکہ ظالم درندوں کی حمایت میں عملی اقدامات کرنا بتاتا ہے کہ اب چاہے حکمرانوں کی صورت میں درندے ہوں، چاہے فوجی طاقت کی صورت میں درندے ہوں، چاہے عالمی اسٹیبلشمنٹ کی صورت میں درندے ہوں، چاہے عالمی اس سرمایہ دارانہ نظام کے پیچھے چھپے ہوئے درندوں کے بھیانک چہرے ہوں، ان کو بے نقاب کرنے کا وقت بھی آ گیا ہے اور ان کے مقابلے میں عالم انسانیت کو جگانے کا وقت بھی آ گیا ہے۔ عالم انسانیت یعنی تمام اس طرح کے امتیازات سے بالاتر ہو کر بات کرنا جو ہمیں تقسیم کریں، چاہے وہ جغرافیائی تقسیم ہو، چاہے وہ دین اور عقیدے اور نظریے کی تقسیم ہو، چاہے وہ جلد کی، پوسٹ کی، شکل کی اور زبانوں کی اور کلچرز کی تقسیم ہو، ان تمام تقسیمات سے اٹھ کر فلسطینیوں کی حمایت کرنا اور مسجد اقصی کی آزادی کے لیے مظلوم کا ساتھ دینا، یہ گویا انسانیت کی خدمت ہے اور انسانیت سے اپنی یکجہتی کے اظہار کا بہترین طریقہ ہے۔ تو آج ہماری یہ سب سے بڑی ذمہ داری ہے کہ ایسے موقع پر ہم اپنے زندہ ہونے کا ثبوت دیں. ہمارے زندہ ہونے کا ثبوت کیا ہے؟ صرف ٹی وی اسکرین پر اس طرح کے مظالم دیکھ کر افسوس کہہ کر کف ملنا اور خاموش اور اپنی روٹین کی زندگی گزارنا نہیں ہے، بلکہ اس ظلم کے خلاف آواز اٹھانا، اس ظلم کے خلاف آواز بلند کرنا اور سوئے ہوئے لوگوں کو جگانا، لوگوں کے اندر غیرت کو جگانا، لوگوں کی حمیت کو جگانا، ظلم سے نفرت کا احساس پیدا کرنا، ظالم سے نفرت کا احساس لوگوں کے اندر پیدا کرنا، اور مظلوم کی حمایت کے لیے انسانوں کو ذہنی طور پر تیار کرنا. یہ میری انسانی ذمہ داری بھی ہے اور نظریاتی ذمہ داری بھی ہے. ہم سب کی یہ ذمہ داری بنتی ہے. اگر ہم اس پر خاموش رہے تو اس کا مطلب یہ ہے کہ ہم میں اور جنگل کے ایک جانور میں کوئی فرق نہیں ہے. جنگل کے اندر جب کسی ایک جانور پر حملہ ہوتا ہے تو اس کے ہم نوع دیگر جانور ظالم اور حملہ آور جانور کے خلاف صف آرا ہو جاتے ہیں. حتیٰ جانوروں میں بھی یہ احساس موجود ہے. تو پھر ہم جانور تو نہیں ہیں، ہم انسان ہیں. اللہ نے ہمیں عقل و شعور دے کر انسان بنا کر اس دنیا میں پیدا فرمایا ہے. امیر المؤمنین علی ابن ابی طالب علیہ السلام کا کلام ہے، فرمایا اللہ تکن عبد غیرک وقد جعلک اللہ حرا، غلام نہ بنو جبکہ اللہ نے تم کو آزاد پیدا کیا ہے. ہم آزاد لوگ ہیں. ہمارے ضمیروں کو آزاد رہنا چاہیے، ہماری فکروں کو آزاد رہنا چاہیے، اور آزاد فکر اور آزاد ضمیر ہونے کی سب سے بڑی دلیل یہ ہے کہ دنیا کے کسی کونے میں کسی جگہ کسی انسان پر ظلم ہو تو چاہے وہ انسان کالا ہو یا سفید، چاہے وہ انسان مسلم ہو یا غیر مسلم، چاہے وہ انسان کسی بھی زبان میں بات کرتا ہو، اگر وہ انسان ہے اور مظلوم ہے تو اس مظلوم کی حمایت میں بولنا میری انسانی ذمہ داری ہے، میری دینی ذمہ داری ہے، میری تہذیبی ذمہ داری ہے. انسان ہونے کی پہلی علامت یہ ہے کہ میں رد عمل دکھاؤں. مردہ معاشرہ رد عمل نہیں دیتا. مردے کو آپ چاہے لاکھ ٹھڈے ماریں، لاتیں ماریں، بیلچے ماریں، گینتیاں ماریں، ہتھوڑے ماریں، اس میں حرکت پیدا نہیں ہوتی. لیکن زندہ انسان سویا ہوا ہو تو اس کو آپ صرف ایک سوئی چبو دیں، وہ بل بلا کر اٹھ کھڑا ہو جاتا ہے. اس وقت جو عالم انسانیت سوئی ہوئی ہے، اس سوئی ہوئی عالم انسانیت کو جگانے کا اس سے بہتر موقع اور کوئی نہیں ہے کہ ہم کم از کم فلسطین کی مظلومیت کا یہ پرچم، یہ ان کی ندائے مظلومیت ہر انسان تک پہنچائیں اور بتائیں کہ آؤ فلسطین کے ان مظلوموں کی حمایت میں لب کھولو، سڑکوں پہ نکل آؤ، گزرنے والے لوگوں کو بتاؤ کہ فلسطین پر ظلم ہو رہا ہے، لوگوں کو بتاؤ کہ مسجد اقصی پر ظلم ہو رہا ہے، لوگوں کو بتاؤ کہ گزشتہ 70 سالوں سے 8 نسلیں دنیا میں تباہ ہو چکی ہیں فلسطینیوں کی، لیکن ان کی حمایت میں بولنے والا کوئی نہیں ہے. ان کی حمایت میں حکمران خاموش ہیں، ان کی حمایت میں انسانی حقوق کے ادارے خاموش ہیں. جانور کے حق کے لیے آواز بلند کرنے والے ادارے ان لاکھوں انسانوں کی شدید ترین مظلومیت پر لب سی کر خاموش بت بنے ہوئے ہیں. ہم آزاد لوگ ہیں، عوام ہیں. ہماری ذمہ داری ہے کہ ہم اس موقع پر لب کھولیں، اس موقع پر اپنے لب بھی کھولیں اور لوگوں کی آنکھیں بھی کھولیں، لوگوں کے کانوں کے پردے بھی کھولیں، لوگوں تک یہ پیغام پہنچائیں، اور ایک آواز ہو کر قدس کے دن، یوم القدس میں بیت المقدس کی آزادی کے اس عالمی ایجنڈے کا حصہ بن کر فلسطینیوں سے اور مسجد اقصی سے اپنی یکجہتی کا اظہار کریں اور اس کے ساتھ اپنے زندہ اور بیدار انسان ہونے کا ثبوت دیں. اللہ تبارک و تعالی ہم سب کو اس بات کی توفیق عطا فرمائے اور ہمیں زندہ انسان ہونے کا شرف عطا فرمائے.
Thank you very much, all distinguished guests. As we come to the end of this Baitul Muqaddas International Seminar, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to all our esteemed guests for sharing their valuable insights and perspectives with us. Your presence have truly made this event a memorable one. Imam Rahil once said, "The people who love each other for the sake of Allah stand firm and brave, facing all the hardships and misfortunes with unwavering determination." And I believe that this is what we have witnessed today. We have seen a group of people who may come from different backgrounds, from different countries, from different religions, and have different beliefs, but who have come together with a shared purpose and a common goal. I hope that the discussions we have had today will inspire us all to continue the work of building bridges and promotion peace and understanding. Let us remember that we are all part of a single organism and that our differences only enrich us. Once again, thank you to all of you for being a part of this conference, and thank you to all the participants for your active engagement. May we continue to strive towards a more just and peaceful world. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.